Hello and welcome back to Heart Matters Living with Intention. My name's James Eder and I've got hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And you're joining me for an update that I normally do more frequently, but I can't even believe it's been 21 months since my last update. And I've meaning to do it for a while, and I'm so grateful for people that are kind of watching and tuning in and subscribe to the channel. And most recently as well, someone kind of posted what's the update and kind of reached out to me to check in with me. And so that was kind of a bit of a boost, a strange thing to happen, to be honest, that I kind of then made me realize, oh, I've not updated. So here I am, and I'm kind of keen to give you a bit of an update. And I think sometimes I say, no news is good news, which has generally been true, but I will try and update more often going forward. So overall, kind of 2024 was um, pretty pretty challenging for some reasons, including things that were not directly kind of heart related. I ended up kind of being in hospital in France while I was traveling, ended up having an abscess removed, which was a bit stressful, and being in the hospital over in Albertville. One of the most amazing things that I haven't had to use before that I kind of tested out was the global health card that's provided in the UK. And I was able to then show that card to them. It's a free card you can have access to. You can see the website here and the details. And ultimately, it kind of was going to cost me over €3,000 to have an operation, to stay in hospital for a couple of nights, and kind of some follow-up care. And with the global health card, it ended up reducing that rate by a significant amount to, I think, only €600. And then I had travel insurance that I was then able to claim as well, that money from. So just a reminder, and if anyone's watching, if you are going to be traveling, whether or not you've got a heart condition, that you can be covered by this global health card, which is an agreement that the UK have got with other countries, so that emergency healthcare can be covered, and then reduce the rate. So even if I didn't have insurance, it would have been significantly cheaper. And often insurance companies will ask about, if that global health card's been used. And then after that, once you've got back, you can then claim, or you can, as part of the insurance, claim. So two things. One, check out the global health card website, have a look at it. And then secondly, you're obviously making sure you've got travel insurance. And fortunately, I was covered by both, and it was just removed the kind of stress, pressure, and anxiety, and gives me more confidence as well when I'm traveling, to know that obviously these things are covered and that I can still get to travel and experience things without needing to kind of worry about that. So yeah, definitely check out the global health card, whether or not you've got the heart condition, as I mentioned, but something that you can then use when you're on your travels. I hope that's a useful tip. And so yeah, that was great. Like really not great, and being then the recovery time, and that kind of took a long time to heal. And I don't know, with all these things, that life happens, and, you have general ailments aside from the heart health stuff going on. But the question, I guess, maybe we take longer to heal because of what we're going through and because of how the body is responding. So that was like a challenging time in kind of March 2024. But kind of aside from that, generally, the kind of my heart health had been stable. Had a checkup in October 2024 at Bart's, which again seemed okay. And then it was December 2024 that overall I thought I was doing okay, but there was an increase in water retention, which meant that there's kind of increased pressure on the heart. So the doctor over there said, in Papworth in Cambridge, said that I needed to increase the diuretic that I'm on, called furosemide, so to double it, kind of to take it more frequently perhaps than I had been taking it before. And I was with a friend, and we were almost out the door and kind of hopefully getting sign off for another year to kind of be able to go and then come back in a year's time. But unfortunately, just before we left, she said, let me check one more thing. And that one more thing then led me to needing a right heart catheter, which is a process where they go in, if you remember, if you're aware of this, they go in through the neck into the heart with a kind of a monitor that monitors the pressure, and to see how the pressure interacts with the lungs and your lung capacity, and kind of ultimately the ejection fraction, they call it. And in the past, it was kind of 51, and then it went down to 49. So it's always been kind of around that. ultimately that was kind of related to the kind of heart transplant assessment. So instead of two full day assessment, they kind of split it up, and I had to do the exercise bike as well. So to look at my lung capacity. And ultimately, I was slightly worse overall than I was 2 years ago, but still not as bad as I was kind of 4 years ago. So fortunately, it was, another scenario where they said, look, see you again in 6 months or so. So I'm kind of grateful. Again, I know they're looking after me, but it was a really challenging, I guess, 3 days where I had to kind of go back to Cambridge three separate times. And I had kind of different friends supporting me, which was always kind of so grateful for them. And it was just, as I said, I was almost out the door. And then they were like, no, we just need to do these things. They wanted to get them done kind of with urgency before Christmas. So yeah, that was quite a difficult time. And I also had like quite a stressful time kind of outside of I say outside of heart related issues. I ended up doing a refurbishment in my flat that caused a leak downstairs. And I'd be very curious to know, like, I guess, is there another scenario when I didn't have that work done? Would I have been feeling how I was feeling and kind of very run down, very tired, and kind of impacting with my heart? And was it just a coincidence, or actually was my body responding kind of to the stress that I was under and the pressure that kind of instigated? Had I known that there was going to be a leak and all of the challenges around it, I would never have done the work in my home. But like, it's one of those things. I'm just grateful it's finished and done now. And what's interesting as well, the reason why I did the refurbishment was related to the heart as well. That if I do need a heart transplant, or when I need a heart transplant at some stage, then to kind of make my home as good as it can be and to create an environment that works and that is just a special environment. And so I'd been waiting really kind of 11 years since I moved in to see if I can improve my home. And it was, in the background, the reason why I did it is very much heart related. So I'm pleased I've done it now, and that's definitely behind. But I think it was, I guess, one of the most stressful parts of, I don't know if anyone watching has done a renovation, but it was extremely, extremely stressful, and a very different type of stress related to my heart because I was impacting on other people, and just, it was, yeah, difficult time. So I'm pleased that I've never been so pleased to say goodbye to 2020, 24, or any year in all my life. So that was kind of a good end of the year. And one of the visits to Cambridge was actually really special. I ended up seeing Lisa, who was an amazing person who's had a heart transplant herself. And so it was really special to kind of share in clinic some time with her and kind of speaking in between our different appointments and with the bloods and seeing the doctors. And she's actually come to speak in the past as well to Cardiomyopathy UK, to our North London support group. So I've kind of met her a number of times along the way. And like I said, that was a super special, kind of added something kind of different perspective to the day. So just coming back to the doctors, and they originally said that a transplant I would need to be within kind of 3 to 5 years. And ultimately now we're in year 7, which is just, again, amazing. And I feel so grateful for the doctors. When I questioned them about this, obviously they said, look, it's a moving date, but they still believe that it's likely within the next 1 to 2 years, which is why they're keeping such a close eye on me. And, overall, I'm feel quite stable. And then there are just some days where it's just so difficult and challenging, and whether it be kind of more tired or breathless, especially kind of recently, which I'll go on into. Um, so, again, the end of 2024, got the all clear to travel again, which is great. And over the next kind of few months, been really, been really great. But I also, like, I overdid it. There was like one specific day I'd gone out, and again, fortunately, I can still ski. So skiing downhill, and then I drove kind of a car journey for a few hours, got home, then went out to kind of a celebratory lunch, and might have been dancing on some tables and having a great time. But then my heart rate just went elevated, and I was, for about 18 hours, really, really kind of feeling uncomfortable. I think my atrial fibrillation was worse, and I needed to sleep. I needed to rest. And it did come down by itself, but again, it was extremely challenging. And a few months later, then again, continuing to travel, I'm really affected by the humidity as well. And so there was a night when I was like really, really breathless and my feet had swollen. And it's super interesting with the development of AI. I mean, it's come so far since my diagnosis in the last few years and even the last few months. But I took photos of my feet and I asked it, are they swollen? And it said yes. And then I asked it, then I sent different photos a few days later and was like, has it changed? And I think that's a really interesting way of kind of using AI, not to give you a solution, but just to kind of help your awareness and track things over time, which I thought was kind of super interesting. And then also asking it, look, what are the specific things I should do, which says all the normal things, and obviously to do with the diuretics and being aware of the water that you're drinking and obviously resting. And the latest checkup as well, then kind of back in Cambridge, really needed to keep up the diuretics. And what's interesting is probably we discussed in December taking the diuretics like every so often when I was feeling something, then taking it more ad hoc. But actually, that's probably a bit too late. And so on the notice of the next appointment in Cambridge, the decision was, every other day to take double. And I have more recently also just been taking double a bit more consistently, just because there was a kind of a few weeks where I really wasn't feeling well as well, which, again, it's then when you get used to it, it is so much better not to feel how I was feeling. So I'm really grateful again that the medication it is working and kind of supporting me. And I do actually, really, really notice that. So most of the time, since the last appointment, I've been okay, except again, usual breathlessness. And there was another specific day that I can think about in the summer when I didn't really have a rest in the day. I was cooking for a few hours. The kitchen was quite warm. And I had like a little bit of alcohol. There was some French wine that I had, some red wine, and maybe it was the combination of all of those things. And I just had to say to everyone at the dinner party, like, I just need to sit outside. And again, for a few hours, kind of my resting heart rate was over 90 beats a minute. And that was kind of quite a stressful scenario where you're just like trying to breathe and meditate and just like how to just calm things down and kind of say to people on the evening, like, I just need a moment. I need some time away and come and talk to me and I'll relax and hopefully, things will calm down. And it did. And I was just kind of doing some slow breathing and it did get under control. But again, it's just like one of those things that happens. And again, I guess it's that self-awareness and being able to catch myself and be like, okay, I just need to stop. And then went to visit the Do lectures, which was in Cardigan, which is in Wales. And fortunately, I connected with some people on the spreadsheet before that they put out to say people kind of car share, so I didn't have to drive. And no, I arrived at the venue. This was again July 2025. And I arrived at the venue and I'd been there 13 years ago. And it's a strange feeling being somewhere so familiar when I feel like my world was just such a different world. And I felt really, I guess, quite overwhelmed at times. And it was a difficult few days. I remember walking from the kind of we're staying in these tents and these yurts kind of up to the main venue and struggling to walk to the shower, struggling to walk there, and just this breathlessness and overwhelm of kind of sadness and challenge that it just wasn't a great few days. And again, I know my sleep's impacted to sleeping outside or in those tents. It was, I'm sure, compounding. So there was just one day there were kind of activities going on and it was like the best decision just to kind of go and have a lie down. And I just remember being quite tearful, to be honest, going to the shower in the morning and like, why is this so difficult today? And it's just one of those things. And during the event, actually, it's kind of this interesting kind of wild journey, which I'm super excited to share. That in the pipeline a number of years ago, when I was told that I needed the heart transplant, I had this idea that I really wanted to publish a book about kind of the story about my heart condition, but also around serendipity and connection and helping people to kind of ultimately to share my story. So kind of in case something happened to me, that my story would be shared and that people would be inspired by it and hopefully it would like make a difference and a bit of a legacy. So if I wasn't here, people could still kind of understand and know, what I guess part of my journey has been all about and hopefully inspire them to make a difference and very much aligned to Heart Matters Living with Intention. It's like, why do we wait for something bad to happen for then us to make a change or do something that we really want to do? And so whilst I was away in June, I get a message from the publisher saying the book's now live, it's online. And I was a bit overwhelmed by it because I was like, well, okay. And they said I couldn't plan a launch date because it's the kind of a moving date that wasn't quite possible. Anyway, I made a decision that I was going to do this kind of book launch in September, but like now it is already out and some people were buying it. And I mentioned it to some people, but kind of said, don't buy it yet. But then people bought it and it ended up becoming in the top 10 best-selling on Amazon. It's been the highest, was #2 bestseller on Amazon in the professional and career development section. And then it was the #1 most gifted, which was amazing. And there was kind of this momentum and I kind of was like, oh my goodness, it started. And then I just kind of thought, I've got to go with this. And someone shared a story at the event of this lady. Unfortunately, had a terminal illness, and a friend of hers was going on a date and said to her, "What do you think about what I'm wearing?" And the person with the terminal illness said, "Look, we don't have time for that kind of question." And I thought for me, it was like, I don't have time to wait to September for this to launch and for me to do, this big event. Like it's out. Why not kind of roll with that? And so I messaged people. I started kind of doing some promotion around it, sharing the book with people, but still decided, look, I'm going to do an event. And so the event came about that I literally said, right, on the 17th of September, I found a venue and I kind of put the date out and then decided to sell tickets for the end with a view of turning it into a fundraiser. And I guess the key thing was, I can't run a marathon because of my heart condition, but what I can do is write a book, share my stories, and hopefully help others in the process. And so I originally decided to give 10% of the profits to the British Heart Foundation and Cardiomyopathy UK. And now actually I've decided, well, between now and the end of the year, 100% of the royalties are going to be going to those two different charities, which again, I've been sharing along the way as part of this YouTube channel. And I'm just so excited kind of to be able to share that with you. And I'm going to be doing kind of some more content and sharing around it, kind of specifically the book launch, the content kind of around that, and kind of speaking to people about what we've been doing and about the connections that I've made and various things. And really, I guess, leaning on that theme about kind of living intentionally and kind of why this is so important. Bringing kind of right up to kind of the most recent time I was just traveling again in September. And, I was really struggling to walk some days, and walking up just a flight of stairs was very challenging. And there was like one specific moment as well where I was trying to cross the street and I just wasn't doing it fast enough and kind of cars were beeping me. And that was a real struggle. And I was walking with someone also that I didn't know very well. We'd only met recently. So I always feel this like being really conscious that I need to like proactively share, but also that day was just like much worse than it normally is. And so I hadn't really prepared myself or them for the expectation that like if I'm struggling, like we're really going to have to stop. And we ended up walking about kind of 45 minutes, which should have taken like a quicker journey. And then I ended up getting some buses and taxis, which was absolutely fine. But it was a very unusual day that kind of really again reminded me that that I've got a heart condition, that things are challenging, that I need to listen to my body, and even being with other people, that I really need to be clear with expectations. And look, I once again said I'd rather be, traveling and doing what I'm doing instead of sitting at home waiting for a heart transplant and not being able to do those things. And so if it means that once or twice a week that I need to take it easier, that I need to rest, that I need to take a taxi instead of walking, then that's still a better option at the moment than going on the heart transplant list and going through that procedure again at the moment. And look, maybe that will change. And I've said it before. I'll say it again. If there are too many days in a row where I can't function, and that was a great example of not being able to cross the road easily, having to stop multiple times, feeling faint, and that was, a very difficult day. And if it was like too many days like that in a row, then I would 100%, come back and come to the doctors and say, look, I need to stop and I need to potentially go on the list. And again, before I do that, there will obviously be more tests and consideration around that. But that's where I wanted to just like take up to today. So next time I'll be sharing kind of a bit more about the event and the decision to do the book launch, and there'll be some related content around that. So yeah, if you've got any questions, again, please do come back, have a look, and feel free to ask them. And I'm more than happy to help answer any questions you've got kind of around the condition and around kind of my journey and what's been going on. And I really hope that you keep well and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will update more soon. Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out the British Heart Foundation, Cardiomyopathy UK, and Save 9 Lives. Feel free to comment on the video and subscribe.